My name is Pooja. Welcome to this week's episode of Around the World. The Russia-Ukraine war is being fought in Europe, but this war is impacting the whole world. With the commencement of this war, various challenges also came to the fore. Crude oil prices skyrocketed, global inflation soared, and Russia faced a variety of economic sanctions. However, Russia is still facing those sanctions. These economic sanctions have not only affected Russia, but also other countries of the world. When economic sanctions were imposed on Russia, many countries of the world avoided doing trade with it. However, the countries that supported Russia continued trading with it. India is one such country which continued doing trade with Russia. After the Russia-Ukraine war, India supported Russia on every front, be it diplomatic or economic. However, it seems that India is benefiting Russia on the one hand, and on the other hand, it is also harming itself. Ever since the US imposed sanctions on the import of crude oil from Russia, India has increased its oil import from Russia. According to the data, India used to import only 1% of Russia's total oil exports before the Russian-Ukraine war, but the figure increased to 18% in May 2022. According to the report of the news agency Reuters, Russia has become the second largest exporter of crude oil in India, leaving behind Saudi Arabia. The oil imports from Russia to India reached $5.3 billion between February and May 2022. This figure is almost 5 times the imports made by India during the same period last year. These figures suggest that India has changed its strategy drastically in terms of oil imports. However, India has not only increased crude oil imports, but also it has increased fertilizers, coal and edible oil imports from Russia. As per the media reports, Russia has exported $5 billion worth of goods to India in the last 2 months, which is much more than the last year. India's imports from Russia have increased nearly 3.5 times since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. According to the figures, India's import from Russia had reached $8.6 billion. However, India had imported only $2.5 billion worth of goods from Russia in the same period last year. However, India is paying the price of increased imports in the form of decreasing exports during this period. This loss is so much that in the first 2 months of the current financial year itself, India's trade deficits reached $4.8 billion compared to $900 million during the same period last year. It means that Russia and India might not have stopped doing trade due to the recent war, but India is facing losses in this bilateral trade. However, the matter is not limited to trade only. India is also facing several challenges at the diplomatic level too. After the Russian attack on Ukraine, the Western countries, especially the US, have been pressurizing India to take a tough stand against Russia. The US has asked India to clear its stand on several issues including S-400 systems from Russia. However, the relations between India and Russia are flourishing despite all the global pressures. India is suffering losses in terms of trade, but India's clear stand on its relations with Russia has benefited India diplomatically. Now the question arises that what diplomatic benefits India is getting? The US is not only observing India regarding S-400 systems, but also its allies. In fact, India as well as Saudi Arabia and Turkey, the allies of the US in the Middle East, are also inking deals to purchase the S-400 air defense system from Russia. However, the US has surprised everyone by making a new move. The US House of Representatives has passed an amendment motion to the CAATSA Act. CAATSA stands for Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. The law bans the purchase of defense equipment from Russia, Iran and North Korea. However, as per the amended act, India will be allowed to purchase defense systems from Russia. Surprisingly, no concession has been granted to Turkey, a NATO member and a key ally of the US in the amended act. In such a scenario, the recent US move is being considered cardinal from India's point of view. Although the US could have imposed sanctions on India under the CAATSA Act, but it chose not to do so, and it is a diplomatic victory for India. The US granted concessions to India instead of Turkey, a NATO member. It reflects that how important India is for the US. Furthermore, it can also be said that the US understands that India needs S-400 air defense systems. It should also be considered as an acknowledgement of trust between India and the US. Now another question arises that why the US is being so generous towards India. It is a well-known fact that the relations between India and Russia are very old, and India purchases 60 to 70% of its defense equipment from Russia. In such a scenario, India cannot ditch Russia, and the US is well aware of this fact. In such a scenario, the US not only understands India's defense needs, but also views India as a major power to counter China. At present, China is the common adversary of both India and the US. The US also understands India's role and its importance in countering China. India's inclusion in the Quad reflects India's growing significance in global politics. At a time when the US is battling with Russia in the Ukraine war, it will not make the mistake of messing up its equations with India in Asia. It is possible that the US may step back from its current stand on India in the future. At present, the US needs India's support to counter China. However, with the passage of time, it will be revealed that how deeply the US has trusted India and how successful India was in balancing the relationship between US and Russia. Now let us look at today's question. Why the US is taking a liberal stand against India? Explain with reference to countering China in Asia.